It was a beautiful trip out to France last round, but traipsing halfway across the globe once again, we now arrive in sunny California. Despite an underwhelming result at Le Mans, Pansgrau retains an impressive lead over his nearest rivals. In fact, the much closer fight remains for second. Let's see if the positions switch around after today as we get ready to watch round 9 of the Turn 2.0 Flying Huskies. And you'll see it all live here on the Global Sim Racing channel. Hi, I'm Joe Pekin. With me in the booth is DJ Clark. Behind the scenes is our director, Sean Crackers Ambrose, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. Because it's part of the base content on the service, Laguna Seca is a track familiar to just about any iRacer who has climbed the ranks in road racing. But just in case our viewers haven't spent a lot of time here, let's head to our track guide. Welcome to Laguna Seca. Located just east of Monterey, California, it's hard to deny that this is one of the more scenic American road courses. It travels up and down a hillside which not only offers spectacular views, but one of racing's most iconic corners. Clocking in at 2.25 miles in length, 11 turns split up the current configuration. I say current because up until 1988, the track's layout was shockingly simple with a mere 9 dangerously fast corners. But despite becoming a much more technical track, this difficult nature was retained in its modern form. Turn 6 in particular places an emphasis on precision and daring with its tricky dip at the apex and narrow racing line. But the most well-known spot on the track is of course the corkscrew. Blind and kinked on entry, it then whips the driver through a chicane which drops you nearly 60 feet. It's earned a reputation worldwide for forcing even the most daring competitors to second-guess themselves. But there's honestly a refreshingly wide variety in types of corners, making it a perfect track for driver coaching and training. Elevation changes, differing cambers, and every sort of apex imaginable leaves seasoned veterans and newcomers alike spending hours trying to perfect a lap. With the track becoming popular for hosting IMSA, IndyCar, and MotoGP in its recent history, it also brings out lots of vintage racers due to the Monterey historics each year. Likely to remain a fixture on the American racing scene, this legendary circuit is almost always high on drivers' best of lists. Its history and its uniqueness are sure to delight all for years to come. Well, DJ, we're taking F3 cars to this track, which is going to be a zippy ride, I imagine. But what are you expecting today?
Well, I'm going to be expecting a lot of technical challenges for these drivers, Joe. You know, Laguna Seca, everybody thinks about it. We think about the corkscrew, which is without question one of the greatest sequence of corners in racing. But really and truly, what makes this track so difficult is the run up to the corkscrew. Turns 3, 4, 5, 6, the series of rights and lefts going up. They're all about third or fourth gear corners that you've got to hit just right. Otherwise, you're going to be off into the sandy dust that makes the barriers for Laguna Seca around here. It is going to be a little bit easier in these F3s. They're not going to be going quite so fast as, say, the Indy cars would around here, but they're going to have to be very careful about it nonetheless. Now, in the Indy cars that we're used to seeing around this track, it is getting a little bit known that Laguna Seca is hard to pass on. Well, with the underpowered F3s, I think you can see a decent amount of passing coming down into the Andretti hairpin. I also wouldn't be surprised if we see some passing into that final corner, turn 11. That is always a good place to catch somebody napping.
Well, watch out for that. But before we get to the race in itself, let's go through our sponsors, starting with Norsled, which is a nonprofit animal welfare organization dedicated to rescuing, rehabilitating, and finding homes for unwanted, abandoned, and abused husky dogs. Today, every Flying Husky Racing track day or car event benefits Norsled with a portion of the proceeds donated to them. Even if you can't adopt, you can still help and ensure care for these amazing animals through your support. Save a Husky. For more information, contact Todd Curtis through email at todd@flyinghusky.racing.
Flying Husky Racing is a car club based in the Pacific Northwest that delivers premium track days and car events for automotive enthusiasts. FHR is dedicated to safety, development, and building community among members and participants. Find out more on the web at flyinghusky.racing. Flying Husky Racing. Track days are the best days.
It's also brought to you by Turn 2.0 Drivers Club, which is a car club based in Northern California and founded in April of 2020. The club runs approximately 20 private days a year at Sonoma Raceway in Thunder Hill. It was created as a private, exclusive membership club designed for and by race car, track day, and racing enthusiasts that share like-minded values. These include safety first, camaraderie, fairness, diverse interests, love of cars, and a desire to learn and grow as drivers on and off the track. Have fun, be safe, and go faster.
And finally, tonight's event is presented by VSRS Motorsports. VSRS is a multi-purpose consulting business focusing on motorsports marketing and digital media space, as well as exotic, historic, and race car sales and other experiential events for car enthusiasts. Contact Rick Shelton to learn more about VSRS Motorsports. Cool people, cool cars, and cool events.
Now let's take a look at the championship, because as I mentioned at the top of the show, it's split apart between Pansgrow and those behind him. But look at that. We not only have 1 point separating Dan Dwyer and David Anderson, but Rick Sheldon is tied with David. So second, third, and I guess effectively fourth, you could say, are all very tight together. Then we got a bit of a gap back to Todd Curtis, who is in a tussle for fourth with Grant Carpenter, with only about 4 points splitting them. For today's event, DJ, why don't you run us down the details?
Well, we are at the Floor Mats and Trunk Liners Dry Lagoon Showdown at Laguna Seca, driving those Dallara F3s like we talked about in the intro. We are currently out on track for a 10-minute solo car qualifying, so everybody's going to have a perfectly clean track to themselves to see who can set their best lap. And after that, we will have a 20-minute race for these guys to head out on track and see who is the best of the best. And this is going to be important. I think there is a faster pair available. Now, we saw last time out at Le Mans how you really didn't want to use that faster pair because it was such a long lap. But with laps clocking in just under a minute 18, I think if you get into trouble, you may want to take advantage of that.
And I think it's going to be easy to get into trouble, that's for sure. As looks like qualifying's just wrapped up. So we'll go through the starting order for that in a little bit. But I can tell you that I did see a few of the drivers certainly struggling to try and get a quick one down. In the meantime, we had a little bit of cloud cover here, and that seems to have given them somewhat ideal conditions for the race, DJ.
Yeah, it really, really has. It's about 80 degrees Fahrenheit on the track surface right now with about 2 miles an hour of wind, 21% humidity, only 69 degree air temp. That is just about perfect conditions for this track. But I will say the one thing about it is keep an eye on that air temperature. It can change very, very quickly at Monterey. I can tell you, I was out at this track 2 years ago. We started off the day in shorts, and there was a little bit of fog that rolled on in, and by the end of the race, we needed jackets really quick.
Something to watch out for. And hopefully the drivers are just as aware, because we have to remember that this series has a lot of West Coast-based drivers with a lot of real-world experience. So I'm wondering if they've made plenty of visits and kind of know some of the ins and outs of this track that they can use to their advantage. But we got to wait and see who's been paying the closest attention to those little details to try and find themselves an edge around here. So far, it is looking like Siegel might be the one who has done that best, considering we see his time compared to the rest up on the top left. We'll go through the rest of that order in just a moment as the sun comes right back out here in Monterey and warms up the track once again. 20 minutes of racing that the drivers will have to deal with here. So should be a fun time as we wait for that clock to tick down and bring us to the cars to grid up. Not as big of a field as we saw at Le Mans, of course. There's only 9 drivers here today, but it's a much shorter lap, as we mentioned, so the drivers should certainly still be able to stay close to one another and give us some fun. As the clock ticks over, the qualifying session is now officially done. Let's go through our starting order here. It is going to be Nolan Siegel who starts on the pole. Tyler McQuarrie is almost a full second behind him, but will be on the front row. Then it's Dave Anderson starting in third, with fourth going to Kurt Pansgrow. DJ?
Rick Sheldon is going to line up in fifth, followed by Dan Dwyer next to him in sixth place. Mo Smith will be seventh, followed by Tom Curtis in eighth, and lining up the back of the field will be Grant Carpenter in ninth.
Looks like they've got everybody out on the grid already. So the green flag is out and we are underway for round 8 as Nolan Siegel has a bit of a blink off the line. Behind him, Tyler McQuarrie under threat from Dave Anderson at first, down into the hairpin, but he backs out early. They're going to try and get single file. It looks at the front of the pack. A little bit of side-by-side racing between Sheldon and Dwyer.
Almost a little bit of bang and wheels there. That's going to be Dwyer to the inside. Catches a little bit of curb. That's going to throw him off. Behind them, Mo Smith looking very hungry, trying to see if he can sneak a move up there on the inside of Sheldon. He does.
That's going to put Smith into sixth position. Nice move there at the start. And as they come into turn 5, this is that trickier section that you mentioned, and that's Siegel. Our pole sitter's off the course. Looks like he didn't hit anything, but he has gone straight to the back.
And Joe, that is turn 5. We've had a big hit with I think that's Sheldon and Smith as well.
Oh, turn 6 takes its first victim of the day. Victims, I should say, as 2 cars taken out by that one. So now Tyler McQuarrie is our lead driver as we come to complete the first lap. Hopefully he can actually make it to the line here. We don't get another leader as the 39 takes it around turn 11. He's being chased by Dave Anderson, who is going to come across in second with Pansgrow in third.
Well, and Joe, I hate to say I was the one that jinxed these drivers, but I did talk about in that pre-race turns 5 and 6 in particular. They are deceptively tricky corners. You've got to nail that apex exactly right, and it caught out pretty much all of our leaders here today.
Let's take a look at what happened with Nolan Siegel first. Now, he's worked back up to 7th because of the incident with Sheldon and Smith, but what put him there? He was already having a few problems with his internet connection, so hopefully it stays solid during this replay and we can really suss out what sent him off track. Another little blink, and it happened here in turn 5, DJ. Let's see.
So he goes down in there. Oh, I think he just caught a little bit of that inside curb there, Joe, and that just unbalanced the car enough to send him spinning around. Does a good job to get on the binders and stop any more damage, but yeah.
Oh, Smith spun, and Sheldon nearly avoided it, but just clipped him. Both of them out just like that. And unfortunately, that's going to be a hard row to hoe as they're still in pit lane, waiting to return as they go 2 laps down now.
Ooh, and you can see there Dan Dwyer smoking it up big time in the background, but we're going to focus on Dave Anderson and Kurt Pansgrow here, which is your closest battle on track as Dave Anderson sets the fastest lap of the race.
Pansgrow chasing. He smokes it up down into the Andretti hairpin. So Dave Anderson is able to put a little bit more of a gap due to that mistake. Gets himself 9/10 of a second away from the number 5. See if he can gain some of it back in some of these tricky medium speed corners. They head down to turn 5 as we ride on board with Kurt.
And there you can see drops the car down into 3rd gear, lets it open up a little bit. It looks like he had a little bit too much steering angle into the car to really get maximum speed through there. That was a much better approach. He's doing a good job to stay off the curbs. He's really looking like he just wants to try to finish this race at this point. And then here comes the best part, the corkscrew.
little lockup. That or kicked up some dirt, Tyler McQuarrie, but he's still well ahead. I can report that Sheldon and Smith are back on track. They are only one lap down. I was incorrect. So they've only lost a single lap and are trying to do what they can to salvage this race. As into the final turn, both of them locking up, Anderson and Pansgrau. So no advantage gained by either driver, but it is back to about 0.8 of a second.
Well, and that's what can happen, Joe, in these two heavy braking zones going into the corkscrew and going into turn 11. But we're going to jump back here. This is Siegel, who I believe has just gotten around Grant Carpenter for 6th.
Already making inroads. He's by. Carpenter holds with him, and Nolan's connection still plaguing him as he blinks out a little bit. Grant locking it up into that corner as he's got Sheldon behind, but Sheldon is not on the same lap as these two.
He's not, but we're going to go on board with Rick Sheldon here. So here we can watch. This is lining up for turn 4. Throw it in there. That's not a braking corner necessarily. You just need to kind of lift your foot off the throttle ever so slightly to get it, and then we head back up the hill here. Let's see how Rick takes it.
And Siegel went off, and so did Carpenter. So Carpenter's going to give this lap back to Sheldon as he eases by and catches both of them out through turn 6, though, as they had an awkward line through there. Siegel, for what it's worth, his next victim potentially is Todd Curtis, but it's about 2 seconds up the road.
Ooh, and Carpenter having a big lockup going into the corkscrew. As I was saying, those two heavy braking corners, you just don't get as much heat into the brakes around here as you normally would on a circuit with heavier braking zones. And by the time you get to the corkscrew in turn 11, you've got to be very sensitive with that brake pedal to make sure you don't lock it up.
Grant trying to channel a little bit of Alonso maybe with that Alpine paint scheme, but so far no luck as he's back down to 7th, last car on the lead lap currently. I think Curtis is already under threat. My goodness, Todd is absolutely flying.
Yeah, he really is. We follow there. That would be Nolan Siegel getting off track a little bit. We look out the back of Todd Curtis right now. That black machine of Siegel just absolutely stalking him as they start to make their way up the hill.
So Nolan sizes him up as they work their way towards turn 6. I don't think he needs to be in a hurry to try and pass here. Indeed, he backs out of it once they hit that quick left-hander. Looks for the better exit, and as they head towards the corkscrew, does he try and challenge? Yes, he gets his nose down to the inside. Curtis doesn't fight it and lets him go.
He does, but I have to say, Nolan got a lot of dirt there on the run up to corkscrew.
So that is up to P5 now for Nolan Siegel. And he's got about 7.5 seconds to make up to get to Dan Dwyer, as that's a little bit of a spin from Todd Curtis coming through turn 11 and gets the car pointed back in the right direction. Up at the top of the screen, I think that was McQuarrie who just set the fastest lap of the race, as he's got about 4.3 seconds over Anderson. Critical thing, though, I don't think he's been pulling away from Dave by huge leaps and bounds, though.
No, it's not mega, although looking at the last lap times, Joe, that was 0.7 of a second faster for Tyler McQuarrie. So it's not necessarily the old Sebastian Vettel just leaps and bounds by seconds, but just slowly eking away here 10th by 10th. A little bit of lockup for Tyler, though. I wonder if Dave Anderson instead is looking behind himself more so. Well, not anymore. Kurt Pansgrau had a moment coming through the corkscrew. Let's take a look at the replay on this one. Easy one to do, to be fair. This is an incredibly tough corner. It is incredibly tough, and I can tell you, you do not realize just how steep it is till you're in person. But here he goes, lining it in. Looks like he locks up that left front coming in. That causes the car to over-rotate around, and then he catches it mid into the corner. Watch his hands on this, Joe. Reacted just a little late, but keeps it from spinning completely. However, he now has only half a second lead over Dan Dwyer as the 4 tries to see if he can maybe get one more position and reach the podium. He follows behind him through turn 3 down to 4. An unassuming corner, and just how unassuming? Dan Dwyer messes it up on corner entry and thankfully does not hit the barrier, but he's going to lose a spot. Let's jump on board here to take a look at this, because this is a bit of a surprising maneuver here. I don't expect somebody to lose. Oh, he got his left side tires out onto the dirt, Joe. That's what sent him off.
It's a good thing they had plenty of runoff to the outside, because he was certainly headed in at a high rate of knots and thankfully didn't touch the barrier. But that gave Nolan Siegel his next position, probably the easiest he's had it thus far. And he's now into 4th, chasing Pansgrau with a 5-second gap ahead.
Yeah, so he's going to be starting to put the pedal in here. We watch Anderson here. You can see Pansgrau in the back. Looks like Pansgrau is falling back ever so slightly to Anderson. Anderson really able to build that gap.
Yep, Anderson probably happy to have this nice buffer back to the to car number 5, but saw another little lockup into there with a lot of smoke coming off the tires through the Andretti hairpin. Obviously not a long enough race that you can really take out the tires too much, but it's not helping his case, I imagine.
No, it's certainly not. And, you know, Joe, like we were saying with those brakes, it's a lot like Le Mans in the way that these drivers have to approach the braking around here, that they've just got to be really smooth. You want to roll onto the brake pedal. You do not want to jab it, even though that is going to be your instinct to try to get as much speed as you can, specifically through a heavy braking corner like the corkscrew that we see Anderson go through. I don't care how many times you watch that corner, it never gets old seeing an open-wheel car fly down through there.
Well, and I especially love this from on board, right about at driver's eye level. As we look over his shoulder, really gives you a sense of how blind it is through that turn. But we're coming around to complete another lap as Anderson crosses. Let's see what his lap times are going to be like this time. 17.1, that's his fastest lap of the race. Personal best for the 62. And that was only a 10th off of Tyler McQuarrie. He is still losing time, DJ, but I think he's holding his own.
He is indeed holding his own, and I think crucial to what he's also looking at is that was about 0.3 of a second faster than Kurt Pansgrau. Even though Pansgrau is about 4.5 seconds behind Anderson, he just wants to be able to build as much of a buffer as he can and keep himself safe.
Oh, and Kurt's got his own problems because we've been following the progress of Siegel. He's now down to less than 3 seconds behind him. Based on the pace that we've seen from the number 10, I get the sense that it's more of a matter of when, not if, he's going to be caught.
Yeah, and case in point, Joe, Siegel's last lap was about 2 seconds faster than Kurt Pansgrau, so Siegel is coming like a full train with a head of steam.
Let's take a look at Kurt here in that number 5. What if we could get on board looking backwards? I don't know if we have a reverse cam on this car. Here we go. And yeah, this will give us a great idea of the progress of that number 10 as we watch him get closer and closer. Another fastest lap from McQuarrie in the meantime.
Indeed, another fastest lap. Let's keep an eye on the times here as they cross the line. That's going to be a 17.4 for Pansgrau and a 15.86 fastest lap of the race for Nolan Siegel.
Oh my goodness. In fact, that was, let's see, 0.8 of a second faster than Tyler McQuarrie's fastest lap. So Siegel has got the bit between his teeth. This kind of makes me wonder if he could potentially try and get back to Tyler before this is over and challenge for the win.
He looks like he's about 12.5 seconds back with about 7.5 minutes to go on the clock. I don't want to say it's impossible, but I think with the experience of drivers like Pansgrau and Anderson ahead of him, it's going to be a very tough order.
Yeah, that's a good point. The math doesn't seem to add up, so maybe a podium instead. That's the next one up for him, and Kurt locks it up once again into the corkscrew. Nolan's got it down to 1.1 seconds. His best shot coming up is going to be into the Andretti hairpin if he can just get that little bit closer. Let's see what kind of exit each of them gets off of turn 11.
Good lines for both. Bit of a wiggle for Nolan, although it doesn't look like that cost him too much. He's now going to tuck up behind Pansgrau, get full use of that draft. Here he comes, dives to the inside.
Think he's got it. Another lockup from Kurt. And Nolan is going to move himself into third now from pretty much dead last on the field in the middle of the first lap back to P3. 5 more seconds to make up to Anderson. And even with that last lap, a 16.1, Anderson was a 17.6. It's still feasible. We've got, what, about 3 or 4 laps left to go?
He very well could do it here, Joe. He's just going to have to be uber focused on it, and I do think that he may have cost himself a little bit of time having to go and take the attack to Pansgrow. So now that he's got a little bit of clear track, he's going to be able to really, really get the muscle moving.
I don't know if we reported it, but Mo Smith unfortunately had to retire from this race, so we have lost one of our 9 drivers. Sheldon now the last one running and still a lap down. Back up at the front, McQuarrie is up to 8.1 seconds ahead of Anderson. All he has to do is keep this thing chugging along and keep it pointed in the right direction.
Yeah, and he's been doing a great job of doing that so far. We ride on board now with your leader. Now watch how he comes through these corners. Just the perfect amount of curve on the outside and inside. Lets that car carry as much of the track as he wants to. He stops it a little bit. He's not pushing too hard here. Now again into 4th gear there. Interesting. He's keeping it in a higher gear, minimizing any risk of wheel spin. So he is very much looking like he is in a conservation drive here at this point.
Certainly looks to be the most composed of everybody here so far around this track. Haven't really seen much in the way of errors from this number 39. Plunges down through Rainy Curve, just glancing that late apex. Switches across the track through turn 10 with its heavy banking, and then braking hard down into turn 11. Coming across the line with just about 4.5 minutes left to go. They've been lapping at 1:17, so we are looking at about 3 laps left, I think.
I think that's about right. Oh, Dave Anderson's had a problem out of the final corner.
He almost spun it, and already Nolan has been gaining on him hand over fist. That cuts it down in half. Here is the replay before this pass happens, because it's going to happen very fast at this rate. Let's see what he does. Oh, goosed it maybe?
Yeah, I think he got on the throttle a little bit early, and if you remember what I was talking about with Tyler McQuarrie staying in higher gears to avoid that wheel spin, that's exactly the situation that he was trying to avoid by doing that.
Oh man, Dave Anderson already knew that Nolan was coming, I'm sure, and this just makes it worse. He could have maybe tried to defend, but now it's going to be extremely tough. Looking to the inside into turn 6, does he dare? Siegel sends it in, and he's going to take the spot with a brave move.
That is not normal that you see a pass going through that corner, but Siegel does it with ease. And look at this, Kurt Pansgrow wants a part of the action.
Yeah, that mistake from Anderson allowed Kurt to close back in on things, but he's only got 3 minutes left to go. Time is running out. He's got to do it quickly.
He does indeed, and it looks like this gap is ebbing and flowing ever so slightly, but he's got it down here as they go into braking under to about 5.5 tenths of a second. So here he comes. He's going to be able to take advantage of the draft on this curving straightaway.
Heading towards the Andretti hairpin. Don't think he's close enough. He looks way far back from this perspective. Another little lock, big lockup actually. My goodness, just throwing smoke in the face of the number 5. And Kurt actually looked like he had a poor run through that hairpin as well.
Yeah, I think that lockup there from Anderson may have spooked Kurt ever so slightly. He didn't want to go plowing on into him, so he may have checked himself up a little bit. The gap now hovering at about 9 tenths of a second as they head through 5 and work their way up the hill.
Up ahead of them, I'm keeping an eye on McQuarrie to see what kind of time he's going to have as he crosses the line, because this is going to be close to if it's 1 or 2 laps left. I think it's going to be 2. Meanwhile, we continue to watch this battle with Anderson trying to cling to the final podium spot. And so far, he's edging away from Kurt, so that's good news for him. I can report that it is 2 laps to go. McQuarrie just crossed the line.
Well, and Kurt's going to be very aware of that fact, but we watch Tyler McQuarrie here. He knows it's 2 laps to go. It's just 2 more laps of those high gear corners and keeping everything together. He's got an 11.5 second gap back to Nolan Siegel.
Now, here's what's interesting. Dan Dwyer has actually been closing in on Anderson and Pansgrau as well. So we are looking at a three-way fight to decide the last step of the podium.
We are indeed. Dwyer has just been running a very smooth race here. He really hasn't been off of about 0.5 of a second from his best time at any point during the course of the race. So he's going to be hoping for a pretty heavy battle up here between Anderson and Pansgrau, and that's going to let him pull himself closer.
Is that like a Brangelina or something like that? Or?
It's their couple name. Just go with it.
Yeah. Well, Dan Dwyer is now 3.7 seconds back, and you're right, his consistency, I'm looking at the lap times, it is pretty incredible. So credit to the number 4. And we are getting the white flag just about now. There's the number 39 coming across it, and he's still got about 10 seconds now. I want to say that was 12 seconds ahead of Nolan Siegel, but I guess Nolan is really trying to put the pace on, just doesn't have enough laps to try and execute. We've hopped back on board with Kurt, 5 stops, the 62.
This is the closest he's been in about 2 laps, and he's going to need a good run here through the Andretti hairpin. Takes it a little bit wider there than Anderson does in front of him. I think that's going to benefit him. Here he comes, putting the power on. He's able to keep that gap at about 0.5 of a second, so that's a better run than when we saw him this close before.
How many times we've seen Anderson lock up those tires. They sure are Hot Wheels right now. The 62 just has to be calm and collected, and Kurt is a little too far back. Oh, he sends it in deep. Pansgrau may have just cost himself some of his best opportunities later in the lap as he falls back even further away from Dave.
I think that was Kurt just thinking about where to make the move.
2 more corners for Tyler McQuarrie. I'm sure he's going to be happy about this one. And in fact, I think this is going to be Tyler's first win of the season as he comes to the line. Tyler McQuarrie at Laguna Seca is going to claim victory here today.
A flag-to-flag victory there for Tyler, and here comes Nolan Siegel, the hard charger who shouldn't have been a hard charger. Oh, Pansgrau is off, and that means Dave Anderson's going to get 3rd, and I believe that means Dwyer's going to take 4th.
It does, so Pansgrau settles for 5th position. Let's take a look at what happened. I think it was the infamous corkscrew. Yep, there it is.
Oh, and he almost got Dwyer out there as well. You saw that big slide from him.
Yeah, I mean, Dwyer had to have been a little bit put off by the incident in front of him because he can't always tell what's happening. Yeah, he's trying to stay as way left as possible to make sure that he doesn't get involved. But that means all of our drivers are across the line. So we're going to take a quick break here on the Global Sim Racing channel. We'll come back with the unofficial results as well as driver interviews. So stick around. Welcome back to Laguna Seca. This was a fun one to watch, that's for sure, especially Siegel trying to fight his way through the field. But even though he was on the pole, he didn't take the win. His own mistake cost him, and Tyler capitalized from the front row to the win, as he was about 5 seconds ahead at the finish line. Siegel still managing to finish on the podium, going all the way to the back of the field on that first lap with his own error and taking second. Dave Anderson finished in third, with Dan Dwyer didn't have the best of qualifying today, starting from sixth, and everybody else around him making mistakes eventually gave him fourth place. It was Kurt Pansgrau with a fifth and Todd Curtis with a P6. Of course, you've got Grant Carpenter finishing seventh, last driver on the lead lap, Sheldon eighth, and the DNF, unfortunately, for Mo Smith today. We've got our second place finisher ready to talk to us, Nolan Siegel. Nolan, it looked like it was your own undoing today. Tell us about that incident on lap one. What happened?
Yeah, that was not my best move, for sure. Yeah, I don't know what to say. I mean, I just lost the rear on cold tires down in turn 4, I believe it is. So, yeah, a bit of a bummer. I was chasing Tyler down at the end there, and I would have liked to be a little bit closer so we could have had a little battle, but that's how it goes sometimes.
Yeah, certainly, and I can understand these cars look pretty tricky on cold tires. From there, though, you made a great job of overtaking cars and getting yourself back up onto the podium. I mean, what did you do to get yourself focused and back into the action?
Well, I was looking at the splits as I got going again, and I saw that I might be able to get up to P2 and maybe try to run Tyler down. So I just put my head down and put in some of my quickest laps that I've ever run. Yeah, I mean, the car just gets better and better towards the end of the stint as the fuel burns off. So really, I was just able to keep getting faster and faster as I kept going.
Obviously, you also compete in the USF 2000 series in real life, which is sort of in a similar vein to these cars. Have you ever had to do that in an actual race, try and work your way back up through the field?
I have, yeah. Last season, I had a few botched qualifying sessions and a couple races where I just wasn't starting where I wanted to, and it's the same thing in the sim as in real life. You just have to put your head down and go as fast as you can, pass as many cars as you can.
I have to say, I was really impressed with the job that you did, managing to get yourself back up to second. Congratulations on a podium today, sir.
Thank you.
That was Nolan Siegel, who finished P2. Up next, I believe DJ has caught up with Dave Anderson.
I have indeed, Dave. Looks like you just kind of constantly had your hands full during the course of that race, either with some pressure from Pansgrau or looking ahead. But how'd you find Seca?
Well, it's a great track, one of my favorite places. I didn't feel too threatened. I kind of screwed up a couple of laps, and I saw Nolan making up time, but I knew that I had the best quality outside of the two pros starting out, and I knew I had some of the best practice out there tonight. So I felt like I could stay ahead of Kurt as long as I didn't make any mistakes. And he and I were we started out the race together, and that was fun. We chopping it up, and we stayed within a second. And when he came back around again the second time, I thought, okay, I know what'll happen here. So yeah, it was a great time. The track was in good condition, and Nolan and Tyler sure ran a good race.
Well, I have to ask you, I always talk to drivers and you hear about, oh, I won the race, but I would have liked some action. So what do you prefer? Do you like when you're in that kind of close battle with somebody like you were there with Kurt? Or do you like it a little bit more when you can just kind of focus on running some hot laps and doing the best that you can?
Oh, I mean, everybody loves to dice it up, right? I mean, you can compete against the clock. That's great, but competing against somebody else in the heat of the moment puts a whole different a wrinkle in things. And it was Kurt's a very good driver, and I knew I'd have my hands full with him out there. And this is my second week now where I've had it not been for the pros in the race, I'd get to take a first place. So that was sort of in my mind. I'm like, I gotta beat Kurt. I gotta get ahead of Kurt and stay ahead of Kurt. And so just decided, dicing it up with him was going to be a whole lot more fun than just being out there by myself.
I feel that, and I have to tell you, I fully agree with you as well. Well, so next week we turn from one sort of dusty California track to the other, although widely different in driving styles, I would say. How do you think these cars are going to handle around Sonoma? I know my experience has been it's a very tricky track in an open wheeler.
Well, I'm going to defer that question to maybe your next interview if you're going to go to Rick Sheldon. Rick has many, many, many hours in a Formula car around Sonoma. Sonoma's tight. It's technical. It's going to be an interesting car. We're going to run the same high downforce, I think, next week as we had today. It's going to be an interesting track. Sonoma is just so much fun. There's not a lot of time to breathe. You're always doing something, and it's going to be a tight race.
Well, I guess from that, I will just transition right to Rick, who does have some experience in the Formula cars at Sonoma. And I know that's a home track for a lot of you guys. So how much are you looking forward to it, Rick? And then we'll throw it open to all of y'all.
Well, I am very much looking forward to coming back to Sonoma. It's the track I have the most experience in a Formula car. Doesn't do you any good if you get taken out in the first lap. And I'm getting sick of that, but it happens. I've done it, and it's happened to me. So I'm not mad at anybody, but it's frustrating. But I'm hoping at Sonoma I can get some good laps and with a little luck be at the front and avoid that.
Well, we'll be hoping to see that lovely painted machine of yours. It is one of my personal favorite liveries up there. And for the rest of you guys, how do you guys feel about Sonoma? Who's excited? Who's dreading? Who's got the hometown advantage?
I can't wait to get back. I have not been there in way too long. That was my home track for a long time before I moved up to the Northwest. So it's where I learned to drive a car. It's where I learned to drive a Formula car. It's where I started racing, and it's where I got lucky enough to win a couple of races too. So I can't wait to get back there.
Kurt, how about you?
I've never raced on the track before, so it'll be a learning experiences next week.
God, that's music to my ears.
Not looking forward to that.
I wonder if I could ask Dan about his race here today, focusing back on today's event. Dan, it looked like you had a very scary moment coming into turn 4. How much did that clear out your race suit?
Yeah, I was asking too much for me to not off the car today, which I think I did a couple times, but I was, very happy to at least not wall it and do damage and need to come into the pit. So I was able to kind of hang in there and keep a gap small enough to take advantage there at the end.
If you hadn't have made that mistake, do you think a podium could have been on the cards today?
I don't think I could have got a podium. I think I could have maybe earned a chance to fight against Kurt. But yeah, the way it turned out, I think I just got lucky off of his incident. I don't know that I would have been in contention for podium positions today.
We talked to you guys here just a second ago about your experience, of course, at Sonoma, but this being another California track here today, how many of you came in here with some tips and tricks in mind before you hit the pavement virtually?
This is Dave Anderson. I'll jump in because I definitely knew I had an advantage. I mean, this is where I started racing in 2005 with Skip Barber, so I've been around this track, several thousand laps. Probably only second to Tyler and young Master Siegel there. But it was all about staying consistent and not doing something silly in a couple of the tough corners. It was really everybody. I mean, if you look at the practice rounds, everybody was really close. So it was all about, running a clean race today.
Gotcha. Well, Kurt, I want to turn to you. We talked a little bit about that awesome battle with Dave that you were having, and then that mistake at the end really cost you. But how was it out there for you? We saw a lot of guys locking up.
The second half of the race, I thought he did pretty well until the spin. I started to make some ground on Dave. I guess Dave had something he spun or something, or had an off track, and got the 4 seconds back, and then I thought might have a chance, but then I pushed it too hard there in the corkscrew, and that was it.
Well, the corkscrew is, sort of, I guess, this track's calling card. But how do you like it as a driver? I know as a fan, it's one of the coolest things to watch in the world. But as a driver, how does it feel going through that on the sim?
Well, it's kind of a little terrifying. I think if I ever did it in real life, I think it'd really actually be terrifying. But I think it's a load of fun, though. This one of my favorite tracks for sure.
Well, I think that is going to wrap us up. But before we go, Todd, I want to bring you back in for just a second. Obviously, you got your event coming up real soon here at the Ridge. I guess in case you wanted to draw any viewers in at the last second, what's your sales pitch? How are we going to bring some drivers to have some fun with you out there?
Oh, well, you asked the wrong guy for a sales pitch, so I'll just have to fake it till I make it. But we're going to have a good time out on track. It's going to be a small group of us, and we're going to see how the weather is. Rain or shine, we're out there to have a good time and to learn. And if it's wet, then we'll just learn how to find grip. And you were mentioning Sonoma before, and a lot of the tracks that I've been on here in the Northwest don't have quite the level of use and rubbering in that Sonoma does. Is such an old track, so when it rains there, it's a different place. So it'll be exciting to kind of get a taste of some rain days up here, and then be down at Sonoma a couple weeks later.
Well, I always say it's the great equalizer, so we'll see how that pans out for everybody, and maybe someone can surprise everybody. But that is going to bring us to our end of the broadcast. A big thanks to everybody for coming in and talking to us, and also a thanks to our sponsors, including Norsled. Save a Husky. For more information, contact Todd Curtis through email at todd@flyinghusky.racing. And Flying Husky Racing. Find out more on the web at flyinghusky.racing. Flying Husky Racing. Track days are the best days. And of course, Turn 2.0 Drivers Club. Have fun, be safe, and go faster. And finally, VSRS Motorsports. Contact Rick Sheldon to learn more. Cool people, cool cars, cool events. Thanks to the companies that provide the software and the hardware for our broadcast listed here on your screen. And additional thanks go to June Lalonde, who provides our wonderful music. See the screen for how to get a hold of more of her great work, because on her Bandcamp, you can now pre-order her new album. Thanks to the team today, DJ, Sean, and Dougie. If you'd like to find out more about GSRC, including upcoming races, you can find it at globalsimracingchannel.com. Also, check out our social media on Twitter at GSR Channel, Facebook at Global Sim Racing Channel, and Instagram at GSRC_Graham. If you'd like to support us, check out our merchandise store at gsrc.storenvy.com. You get a link in the description below, so it's nice and easy to find. And while you're down there, make sure and subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss a moment here on GSRC. In the virtual world, at least, make sure and check us out on March 23rd when they race at Sonoma here. That'll be a Tuesday coming up at 11:30 p.m. Eastern. We have upcoming races for other series listed on your screen as well, so check those out and mark them down on your calendar. But until next time, race clean, race hard, and we'll see you on the track.